In my latest Gundam video that I made over 5 months ago, I talked about one of the greatest endings in all of Gundam. And to get back into the Gundam groove, I started watching and rewatching a lot of Gundam shows as of recently. And of all the various types of shows and films I've watched, I've learned to appreciate the way these Gundam series and films in general try to start their respective stories. Welcome back everyone, it's been a long time, so today I'm going to discuss what my personal favorite first episodes are, as well as what makes these first episodes so iconic and incredible in the first place. When watching any series or film, it's always important for the viewer to get hooked as soon as possible. But first episodes or an introduction, to be honest, might be one of the hardest things a series or film can do. Both have the pressure of finding the way to perfectly capture viewers' attention, as well as introducing main characters, the world, etc. And Gundam has this obstacle, but over the years, it's been harder and harder for them to nail the first episode. So why is that? Ever since the very first episode of Mobile Suit Gundam's release in 1979, nearly every single major series coming forward had a huge obstacle they needed to overcome in its very first episode, along with the things I just mentioned. So let's talk about what that first episode did that captured the hearts and minds of those who watched that episode for the very first time. The first episode of the original Gundam series might be up there as one of the most iconic first episodes of any anime ever, in my eyes. It starts off with some needed exposition about the world, the massive war between Doan and the Federation, and it grabs your attention and creates intrigue as soon as you meet a few characters. And that's what a compelling and engaging first episode can do to leave a lasting impression and generate interest in the story and its characters. The first episode of the first Gundam series also had to set the tone and atmosphere of the series moving forward, and damn did it set the tone. As soon as things start moving, the tone is set. In an instant, the mood shifts as an ordinary day for the people living on Side 7 gets turned into a living nightmare, as war floods their home. The original series isn't as dark as some people make it out to be, but this first episode doesn't shy away from the horrors and terror of what unfolds. Along with this terror present, there's just a hint of hope on the horizon, and all of these things make for such an incredible first episode that just sticks with me. It always gets me inside to rewatch the series again and again. But what this episode had to do was to show what defines this series, so what do I mean by that? For instance, let's start with what makes these first episodes so vital for these series. And what else could I be talking about than its main Gundams? Nothing defines these first episodes more than how they introduce their main Gundams. I can easily remember how each Gundam was perfectly defined in their first episodes, with the RX-78 standing up on solid ground, tanking everything that hit it, just to wreck a bunch of Zaku's up. The Shining Gundam's absolutely stunning Shining Finger, the Wing Zero's unique transformation and reveal, to more modern things like the Barbados emerging from the ground and proceeding to wreck some shit, to the Unicorn's surprising and incredible transformation from what seemed like a unique mobile suit to a goddamn Gundam. There's so much incredible things done with how these Gundams are presented, and so many have their own things that make them so unique and distinct from what came before it. And it's why I always look forward to starting a new Gundam series. There's so many series, however, that don't follow this formula, so were they successful with this or not? This goal to present the Gundams in the very first episode is what makes so many people excited to check out newer shows, but it did have its fair share of problems over the years. For instance, Victory Gundam has one of the weirdest cases of first episodes. The episode order got completely shifted around instead of it going off of episodes 1 to 5, and this is mainly due to sponsors all wanting the main Gundam to be present in the first episode, which tends to win people over, and while this could work from a marketing standpoint, it could leave people confused. The episode they aired first started balls deep within a conflict that was supposed to be established first. At the cost of showing off your cool new Gundam, you already lose viewers and cohesion in your story. So with this said, does the newest Gundam series follow these formulas that I mentioned? Well, it does. I know I haven't really made a video about the Wish from Mercury series yet, mainly because I'm not fully caught up with the second season due to me being extremely lazy, but I think it had a pretty good example of setting up the plot and characters all within the very first episode. But then I remembered it also had a prologue episode, so I'm not really sure what to genuinely count as the first episode, but for my sanity's sake, I'll just go off of the first episode after the prologue, despite the prologue being pretty good overall. The first episode, like I said, does everything a Gundam series usually does. It introduces main characters, establishes the main players in this soon-to-be massive conflict, and introduces the main Gundam and how shiny, cool, and impressive it is. But the main thing I liked about this first episode has to do with its setting and how the rules of the setting were established. The common setting with these Gundam series I talked about either in colonies, Earth, or sometimes the moon. But this setting isn't really in a colony, but more of a space school, if that makes any sense. And because of that, there's all sorts of ways this could be a bit boring for some people, but this series tries to do something that makes it extremely unique, and that's mainly by establishing its duels. The duels pretty much function as standard mobile suit fight, minus the bloodshed and death that some fans might be accustomed to. But Wish for Mercury does something that helps raise a bit more stakes by having both contestants set aside something and wager it. In the first episode, Ghoul, who's pretty much a spoiled rich boy, wagers that if he wins, the main character Suletta leaves the school forever, and if Suletta wins, she doesn't. The whole episode revolves around a single duel, and it makes great use of introducing further elements of the story, does some pretty cool stuff involving the main Gundam, and honestly just serves as a nice first episode. And no surprise, this series is doing quite well currently because of how many people it managed to bring in with its very first episode. So now that I mentioned how even in modern day Gundam, introductions usually did the same thing older shows did, I'll mention an example that follows absolutely nothing with what I just mentioned, and it's probably one of the best first episodes I've ever seen from the franchise. Turn A Gundam's first episode is breathtaking. It does everything I would want in a series. The world is clearly defined, it's beautiful. From the foreign and steampunk-like technology that fills the screen in nearly every single scene, the masterful world building at play, the mystery of the mission the main character is trying to achieve, the fantastic character interactions that make up the entire episode, it's brimming with life. It's one of the main times where I was so invested in the first episode so much, where I just sat there and appreciated the visuals, the story it was trying to tell. And then it finished, the credits rolled, and I realized, oh wait, they didn't introduce their main Gundam. And that is honestly the best decision that could have been made for the series. To me, I love it when the Gundams finally come onto the screen and show everyone what they're made of, and all the new gimmicks that will make them all unique. But what Turn A Gundam does in its first episode is what I think perfectly nails what a first episode should do. From the very first few minutes, it manages to create a whole new, unique, and beautiful world that us, the viewers and the main character, wander through with fresh, new eyes. It's no surprise that even during the first episode's release in the 90s, it was widely appreciated and even considered by those who watched it at that time something that could easily be on par with what Studio Ghibli puts out. And that comparison actually works really well because it does pretty much the same thing. It's calm, it's soothing, it feels alive. It takes its time getting you set into the world and its characters, and while I've watched so many Gundam series for the most part that follows the same structure of having these cataclysmic events with in-your-face action where you eventually find out what the main Gundam is and what it can do, I was so shocked when I realized that what I was watching is a Gundam show. A show that is widely considered by those who watched it a franchise about the brutality and horrors of war. But this first episode further cemented the true meaning of what Gundam is as a franchise to me. Not just a franchise that shows the brutality of war, but a franchise about the beauty of humanity itself, the wonders of human connection, and the joys of life without conflict and the importance of peace. It's just a fantastic first episode that has stuck with me ever since I first watched it. And to me might just be the best first episode of a Gundam series I have watched as of recently. Over the years, more and more, the franchise grows bigger and bigger, and because of that, it's a lot harder for a newer series to stand out with all the numerous things it has already shown viewers across the world. But what I realized over these past few months, especially when I watched all these recent Gundam series and films I haven't fully finished or caught up with, was that it doesn't always have to follow the same formula each series has been following since the first series aired. Like I mentioned with some series that did something distinctly different, it's okay to branch away with the norm as long as it tries to tell a compelling story that will genuinely try to win you over. With Turn A Gundam, I was full of wonder and excitement with what the series had to offer, and the main Gundam wasn't even present in the first episode. So what I want to end the video with is really just bringing up how people over the years make a lot of watch orders for the numerous Gundam series. And to a certain extent, I do think they could be helpful, but at the same time, I don't really think watch orders are all that great. Except for a few certain exceptions, but if you want to check out a series because you think it might be interesting, just watch the first episode. That's all it could take for people. So much people got hooked and invested in Witch from Mercury because of its first episode. It's just incredible how effective the first episode of any series can be. And with Gundam, there's an endless amount of things out there for you to explore. And this can apply for any show or comic or manga. Watch what might interest you. Give it a try. There's a whole world out there just waiting for you to explore. So what's the harm in giving it a try? And who knows? It might just be that one show that will change your life forever.